Today, I want to convince my audience that religion does not have a place in government in the United States. My argument is for the separation of church and state. The purpose of separation of church and state is to keep forever from these shores the ceaseless strife that has soaked the soil of Europe in blood for centuries. And this was said by James Madison, who was one of the founders of the Constitution, the document of America's laws that still are taken into account today. The separation of church and state is an extremely vital part of our country that is needed, and it continues to slip with the continuous blend of church and state that takes place in the nation. Hi, my name is Regynne Doepke, and this is my speech to Persuade on the separation of church and state. The sole purpose of this speech is to persuade that our country needs a separation of church and state. Government plays a crucial role in our lives every day, and that's why this topic matters to all of us who live here. And government, it affects all of us in both big and small ways, and they maintain law and order in order for society to function. Now, to introduce main points, I will be defining separation of church and state. What does that exactly mean? The history of separation wanted from the beginning of the country, when the founders made the Constitution and Declaration. Suggestions there's not separation in our country previously and currently, the consequences of that, and finally, what can we do to help? What can we do to further that blend? Now, according to Webster's dictionary, the separation of church and state is the principle that the government must maintain an attitude of neutrality towards all religions, and even those who do not practice religion, including atheists, right? So the history of separation wanted from the Founding Fathers began at the beginning of America. The separation of church and state was fought for by Thomas Jefferson and other Founding Fathers, and is even included with the intent of the Establishment Clause and Free Exercise Clause of the First Amendment in the U.S. Constitution. And the concept for the Founding Fathers came from an English philosopher named John Locke, who they often used as an influence for the Constitution. Locke saw religion as a natural right, meant for all humans. It's natural for all of them, and argued that it must be protected in every way possible from the government. Now, what are some suggestions that there hasn't been separation in our country from church and state then and now? Well, beginning in 1954, there has been some acts taken by executive branch. For example, the Pledge of Allegiance had "One Nation Under God" added in 1954, and that was under the Eisenhower administration. Again, under the Eisenhower administration in 1956, "In God We Trust" became the model of the United States. And then currently, there are still issues with access to abortion based on religious reasons, and then also discrimination against the LGBTQ community in the government are shown, and it suggests that there is not separation in our country currently. For example, from a Time article, federal laws still do not ban discrimination based on sexual orientation. And then the Attorney General, Jeff Sessions, actually used scripture from the Bible to justify President Trump's policy of separating migrant children from parents. And the Attorney General works for the State Department, which is obviously a government position. Now, what are the consequences of blending of church and state? Well, bias, picking a favorite religion, influencing both office and their decisions, government favoritism, and impacting security and economics. And for example, with economics even, funding for churches are equal right now in funding with secular nonprofits in the Trump administration. So finally, what can we do to try to fix this or further separate the church and state and prevent this blend? Well, what can we do as American citizens? Vote people out that you feel are not representing your interests or feel that they are using their religion to influence their decisions. Call your legislators, tell them how you feel about it, because or tell them how you feel about current policies that are being voted on that you feel are blending of church and state. Those are all of your rights to do so. So to summarize, I talked about the history of separation wanted by the founders, suggestions that there's not a separation of church and state in the United States, consequences of blending the religion and state, and then finally, how can it possibly be fixed or improved? How can you improve on that? The blending of church and state will continue to affect America, and it will continue to affect communities that are facing discrimination and others, and it will lead to dire consequences if there continues to be a blend. The government plays a huge role in everyone's lives, so this blending will continue to affect everyone, and it will continue to do so unless it is stopped. Thank you.